Thank you for joining us for this special series of This is Getting Old, sponsored by the 2020 George Washington University's University Seminar Series. Towards Age Friendly is brought to you by Melissa B., PhD, in collaboration with GW Center for Aging, Health, and Humanities. Welcome to This is Getting Old. I'm your host, Melissa Batchelor, and today we're going to be talking about age-friendly employers. And I'm joined by Tim Driver, who's you're the CEO of Age Friendly Ventures and president of the Age Friendly Foundation. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
So maybe before we get started, if you could just introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got interested in age-friendly employers.
Sure. So Tim Driver, and I've been working on age-friendly employers now for about 15 years, and I got interested in it much longer ago than that. I was working on a career site as part of AOL back in the day, and AOL had a lot of people coming to it that were youthful, and we were working with other career sites that were drawing more youthful audiences. And I thought, someday there ought to be a career site for older adults, because the population trends are pretty obvious, and there's going to be the need for older adults to work longer and to find a destination to do that. And I started it as a business idea and thought about it that way, and then it quickly became a personal passion after my dad got let go from a bank job and was replaced by someone much younger than him. And so it became not just a business idea, but a personal passion as well. So that's what got me interested in all of this.
Okay. So what are some of the different parts and pieces of an age-friendly employer? We've had a discussion how they're a little bit different than age-friendly businesses, because that movement is really about kind of the outward-facing interaction with customers. So what's different? How does that compare to being an age-friendly employer?
Yeah, so this is about evaluating employers and workplaces and identifying, welcoming workplaces and employers for older adults. And it all got started because I was founding retirementjobs.com. This is about 15 years ago. And we needed to identify employers that were going to be welcoming to the job seekers who were coming to retirementjobs.com. Sadly, age is or can be an impediment for older adults when they're seeking jobs. And we wanted to save them some time and save them some agony by letting them knock on the doors of employers that were going to be more likely to welcome them. So we needed a name for this, and we developed the term age-friendly to apply to workplaces or employers that were welcoming to older adults. And we, in my past company before this, I was in a compensation and benefits role. And so we developed a filter using sort of an HR compensation benefits lens to identify what would make an age-friendly employer. And we we set out to develop this program, make it available to job seekers. They loved it. And the employers themselves also gravitated towards it. That is to say, the vocal minority of employers who were really proactively looking to recruit and retain older adults. So they adopted it at a good pace in a bunch of different sectors, bunch of different company sizes. So we have for-profits, nonprofits, government agencies. So it was welcomed by the job seekers, welcomed by the employers, and we were really pleased to see that it was welcomed by policymakers. And they saw it as a really good program to help get older adults back into the workplace, re-engaged. A lot of people are retired voluntarily, but a lot of people are also retired involuntarily. And this was a way of getting them sort of off the couch, back into the workplace, and not just more economically secure, but healthier. This is a program that helps sort of really is the antidote to ageism and gets people back into life, re-engaging, socializing, off the couch, not depressed, and then really contributing to society as well.
Right. I mean, I think even probably with the pandemic, a lot of people have lost jobs, and then when you're trying to go back through that process, it's helpful to at least have a starting point. When you say older adult, what do you mean? What age?
Well, we drew the line at age 50, which is a little bit arbitrary. When I started the company, I was 39, and now I'm into my 50s. So of course, the definition of what's old is different.
Right. I was just making sure that, people knew that we're not just talking about people that are 65, that, 50 is the new 60, I guess. No, 60 is the new 50. I don't know.
Yeah,
One of those two.
speaking, about half the audience, there's 1.5 million members of retirementjobs.com across the country, and about half of those people are 50 to 65, and generally speaking, they're looking for full-time jobs. And then the folks who are 65 and over, generally speaking, are looking for part-time work. Okay. And then, of course, we've got lots of volunteer positions available too. Okay.
So if a business wanted to become age-friendly, let's start with that question. What would they do to become an age-friendly employer?
So we have a process that we've honed over 15 years of doing this, and we've developed a bunch of best practices, and we've broken them into 12 categories of standards, and we give the employer an evaluation form to self-evaluate. Our research and certification team is also in parallel doing their own homework to do research externally, so that we are keeping these employers honest. We're also taking feedback from current and previous employees of these firms too, so that we're getting a view from all sides. And we run these programs, or these employers or their representatives, through a process, an application process, and then they come out the other side with either a pass or a fail. And we have taken a lot of care over the years to make sure that we're comparing, like employers to like employers. So we're not comparing a large employer to a small one, or we're not comparing a hospital to a retailer, but and then the employers really value the fact that they get feedback on how they compare to their peers, because everybody who's in this process, every employer, is in it because they've made a commitment, either because it's part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion program, or they're looking to address turnover, or they have older customers. There's a variety of reasons why employers come to it, but they're all looking to be on a journey towards improvement. And we give them feedback so that they can start setting targets and goals for how to get even better at recruiting and retaining the older adult workforce.
Yes, it's interesting to think, well, two things. One is it's almost like a 360 for businesses. We do that as individuals, like a 360. So I like the perspective that it's not just self-reports, it's other people doing external evaluations to kind of give you a composite score and show maybe some blind spots. But then also the fact that this is something that's part of a diversity and inclusion plan. I think that's probably ageism's typically the one that gets left out. So
it often is, and I'm happy to say that there's reasons to be optimistic here. There are more employers who are looking at this program, taking it seriously, and adding age to their definition of diversity.
Okay, so the name of the program that we're talking about, or it's the same certification program, right? It becoming age-friendly employers, you go through the certification, the CAFE.
The formal name for it is the Certified Age-Friendly Employer Program, or we call it CAFE for short.
Okay, and you mentioned kind of the 12 categories for best practice standards. So maybe would you like to tell us about a couple of those?
So we've taken steps to look at the program or the evaluation with both a quantitative lens and a qualitative lens. So some of the questions that we ask and the standards that we measure on are very quantifiable. Let's just start with what percentage of your employees are over the age of 50. And we're comparing them against their peers, these employers. We're also comparing them against themselves, because we ask employers to do a recertification every 3 years. So we keep records, and we want to see, of course, an increase in their commitment to the age 50 plus workforce. And at the end of the day, we want this to be sort of age neutral. We want them and their workforce to reflect the communities in which they do business. So, if it's Dallas, we would like the percentage of their workforce in Dallas to look like the population of Dallas, and that's sort of what we're striving for. So then other aspects of the evaluation are qualitative in nature. We're looking at things like, when you do recruitment advertising, what does it look like? Are you including people of all ages, or is it only younger people? What can we see? What evidence is there that there's an organizational commitment to this topic? We love to see a demonstration of that. Increasingly now we're seeing, ERGs, employer resource groups, employee resource groups, where there's an age 50 plus group that's been assembled within a corporation, and they actually have meetings and they have budgets, and there's a recognition that this is a type of employee that should be specially recognized as unique.
Okay. And then I guess the next thing is, if someone wanted to learn more about the CAFE program or how to become an age-friendly employer, what type of resources do you have available, and where could they find you?
The agefriendlyfoundation.org website is the best place to start. So agefriendlyfoundation.org, and there's an employers tab on there, and there's a good summary of the program there. And then those who want to engage, there's information there about how to contact us and get onto the journey. And by the way, the journey is not difficult. We've taken steps over these years to kind of make sure it's a rigorous program with robust standards, but also make it practical for employers to go through it. So it doesn't take, 6 months to go through. It takes more like a couple weeks.
Okay. And then you have some annual events also?
We do, and those are published on the agefriendlyfoundation.org website. We have events that are aimed at job seekers over the age of 50, and also events that are aimed at participants in the program. Actually, this will be the first year where we do a gathering of participants in the Certified Age-Friendly Employer Program. One of the messages that we've received from particularly the policymakers who have observed and admired this program is that, they've said to us, make sure these employers are meeting each other, because that's where they'll really learn, engage, dig in, and start socializing this topic within the organization and making sure that it gets to the C-suite and gets attention there, because the business case for older adults has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger over the years. And it's much more important that employers are talking to each other than being sort of told to do something either by policymakers or other constituencies. So it's really a big priority for us to get these employers to learn from each other.
Right. I was going to say, and to share best practices. I think a lot of the age-friendly initiatives tend to work in silos, and this podcast is part of building an age-friendly ecosystem, and businesses have a role in that. So thank you for your work, and thank you for being with me today. Do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
Just to pick up on that last point you mentioned, I think it's critically important that there is an ecosystem here, and the Certified Age-Friendly Employer Program, of course, focuses on employers, but there are standards that have been carefully developed in health systems, including hospitals and nursing homes, by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement and the John A. Hartford Foundation, and then with cities and communities by the World Health Organization. And then there are other categories getting similar treatments that are going to be part of this ecosystem as well. So we care very deeply about the fact that these different standards and programs do have shared characteristics and measures, and we're all working together on these now, and then that makes the whole ecosystem stronger, and it floats all the boats higher.
Thank you for joining us for this special series of This is Getting Old, sponsored by the 2020 George Washington University's University Seminar Series. Towards Age Friendly is brought to you by Melissa B., PhD, in collaboration with GW Center for Aging, Health, and Humanities. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. You can find more episodes like this on my YouTube channel, Melissa B. PhD, and don't forget to subscribe. You can also visit my website, melissabphd.com, and check out the podcast and blog section because that's where I put all the hyperlinks and different things that we may talk about in any given episode. You can follow me on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can also find the audio version of the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Amazon Music. So I hope this podcast gives you ideas of different things that we can do to move towards an age-friendly world, because when the world is age-friendly, it's friendly for everyone.